Hey guys, Griever here, bringing you guys another video game review, and I know I've been slack on them, but that doesn't really matter, does it? Well, it kind of does, but whatever. So, we're just going to simply dive right into this one, because this game is a much shorter game. You could probably do this in one sitting. I did it in, I think, about 2, to be honest with you, or I took like a break in an afternoon or such, but it was a free PSN game last month. In May, right? And it's called What Remains of Edith Finch. Now, this game at first, usually here's what I do. And this might seem kind of not gamer-esque equity or quality to you guys, but I simply look up the free games that month. I look them all up on a trophy guide. And if they're possible to do on a trophy guide, if they're easy, if they're fun, if they're quick, I'll get them. But if they're 200 hours and a 9 out of 10 difficulty rating, PlayStation Trophies.org and stuff, you know, those type of guides and forums. And if it's like, oh, it's online this and online that, and I'm like, no, I can't do it, because I hate having a game where it's similar to my Red Dead Redemption file, where I have all the single player trophies. I don't have the multiplayer ones, and that takes me away from a platinum trophy. And I've talked about this before, I always hate it. So when I check all the monthly free games with the PlayStation Plus account, right, I always look up each game before I choose to download it. And I said, okay, What Remains of Edith Finch? I'm like, is this one of those games I can't remember the name of, but some of those walking through alien simulators. What was the one? Something about the case files of X person or something. It was a detective game or something last year. I'll try to bring up the title here in the video editing, but yeah. So I've played those type of games before, and I enjoy them. The Slenderman game, I can't get past the whole getting all 8 journal things in chapter 2 or 3 or whatever. So I never finished that one. But suffice to say, all these free games, I usually just make sure that they're worth my time to try to get the trophies and platinum. You know, even if they're a phenomenal game, I'm probably not going to download a PSN game. I'll download the PS4 games that are free, like a full game. But as far as PSN games go, I'm only going to download them if they're worth my time and my platinum, right? So when I downloaded this game, I decided to plug it in and decided to play it right away. And I'm in the middle of Monster Hunter World, which, by the way, I've never played a Monster Hunter game before. And I can say there are so many flaws automatically with that game that getting that platinum is going to take a long-ass time if I ever even do it. So, but suffice to say, we're here to talk about What Remains of Edith Finch. Now, this game, well, once again, spoilers, right? We're always going to have to give you guys spoilers. So, because I want to talk about story, gameplay, sound, and a final tally with trophy-wise and what I thought of the game, right? That's usually how I structure these in a very easy format, but that's generally how I go about these reviews. So, spoilers ahead. Okay, so now the story. At first, I was not intrigued. I was like, okay, I heard this was about a 10-hour game. I'm just going to walk through. I was like, okay, they're coming back to the house, my mother's house, my grandmother's house. You don't really get a whole lot of narrative exposition right off the bat, so you have no idea what's going on, right? And then, slowly but surely, you start to give a shit, right? It took a while, I'd say about an hour, maybe 2, where you start to honestly okay, what is really wrong with this family? What really happened? Is there an actual curse? And then you have to decipher, because throughout the game, you go through all these different rooms that have been locked up and sealed and all that stuff, and the house has been built on and stuff, and it's kind of creepy in that sense, because the old woman won't let go, and she refuses to, and they are at odds and stuff, and you're kind of feeling that tension in the family dynamic. But you go through it, and by the time you get to certain rooms, you're sitting there like, okay, none of this really happened, did it? And you start to question, is it a fantasy world? Is it a magical world? Is it real? Is it not? Then you realize to the point that no, there's a actual logical explanation for these circumstances, for these deaths. Not all of them, which some of them I'm still kind of trying to figure out. But for the most part, you know that some of them are just, as far as I can tell, this whole game is representative of a mental illness going rampant in a family line. And it has taken people young and old throughout the years. It's a very graphic representation of that, I think, where it's not just one specific mental illness. It's not like, okay, this family suffers from depression. It suffers from actual suicidal tendencies, all the way to anxiety, to depression, to multiple different levels of autism, even levels of self-preservation, lots of different. That's the way I took it. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this game has a multi-layered storyline where you could just look at it on the surface and say, okay, everybody's just crazy, right? And all this stuff isn't real. The comic books, the flying out the window like a bird, and all these other things. But then you get the more real aspects with the guy, like the uncle living under the house the whole time and feeling the train. He thought it was a monster. As far as I took it, he thought it was a monster, but it was the train coming by every day at like noon or whatever, right? And finally, after 30 years, he had the nerve to finally say, you know what, I'm done with this. I need to get out. And he powered through whatever illness or whatever mental problem he had, and then he's struck by a train. It's like, oh man, like that's the one where you finally realize. I feel like throughout the whole game, throughout the whole story, that's the one where you realize that this whole game is based on not on magical occurrences and not on anything else. It's based on the fact that everyone in this family is cursed with some form of issue, some form of thing that they call it the curse of the family. It's not a real curse. It's simply, well, I mean, you could look at it that way, but it's mental issues. This family is born through something. I'm not going to say something weird like, incest or something like that, but clearly there's a level of mental illness heavy in this family. It's not just one, because each character throughout this family tree has their own issues. That's a little different from the next one. And some of them are just bad luck. And then it's like, wow. Like some of them are blatant. Like you have the depression one, you have the suicidal tendency one, the family members like that. Then you have the bad accidents happen. And then you have to wonder, like, okay, well, that was just an accident, right? You have the father with the deer. You have the, what's the one? The baby in the tub. Things like that are just kind of like, or the kid with the swing. Those are unhappy circumstances, right? Those are accidents that are tragic, and they do happen in the real world. But the fact of the matter is, that's why they look on this as a curse, because even if you could chalk up like the uncle and the brother and the sister and all those people to having mental illnesses, the other ones that died, that was merely an accident. Some of them lived to be, as I said, a baby, like 2, and some of them live to be 9 or 10. Other ones live to be in their 30s, 40s, and have children, right? And be a father and be a mother and stuff, and they all end up dying anyways. And it's just it is such a tragic telling of a family cursed with misery. And I tried to read between the lines at my limited knowledge. Like, once again, I'm an electrician. I haven't taken any psychological courses or anything with psychology or any of that stuff, right? Or behavioral analogy, any of that stuff. But I could see it myself that there was more to this story, and I feel like for what they would call an indie game, for a PSN game, they did so much, especially with the voice acting and the retellings and how they showcase it. It was a wonderful story in one sense, but it was very grotesque in another. And after playing through it, I I want to know more, but I don't want to replay. It is definitely only a one-shot game for story purposes, because after that, like the gameplay itself is, which we'll just jump right on into here, is very exploratory done. You have your minigame sequence. You have your, not minigame, but you have your sequences with the suicidal brother or whatever. You have the one with the baby in the tub. You have your one with the little girl, Molly or whatever, with the flying as an owl, then being a shark, then being this, then being that, right? But for the most part, they're there simply to tell a story. They're not really games that you win or lose at. Some trophies make you win or lose at them, right? For you should do this part or have to do that part, right? But outside of that, for the most part, this is simply a walk around and explore and fully revel yourself in the story of what's going on. Gameplay wise, it's very simplistic and almost a little dull, especially for a second playthrough. Like, it's good for what it's trying to do, but once again, replay value is it's a very basic gameplay mechanic. There's nothing very special about the gameplay. There's nothing very special about any of the graphics or any of the engines or anything that's going on. So there is that part. Sound and stuff. The voice acting was perfect for all the different things, especially the comic book segment and stuff with the famous child actress for her scream or whatever. That's very reminiscent of a lot of things that can happen. I like that, and the whole, as you go through the game and you discover that she's actually pregnant and stuff, or if you look down quickly, you'll be like, huh. If you have the right lighting, you'll see your silhouette, your shadow, and you'll know that you're a pregnant woman at the time, right? So the rest of the game, as I said, with the sound and everything, the sounds were fine. The use of the Halloween theme when you're going through the basement segment with I said the comic book segment, they apparently asked John Carpenter or whoever, and they were allowed to use the theme, and you have the Michael Myers, the Halloween theme, the dee doo doo dee doo doo dee dee, and I was like, okay, this is that actually hyped me up a little bit, and at a time where I was kind of like, okay, the game is kind of dragging on a little bit, like, can I just go through the rest of the story, right? That was the perfect moment. They put it in the right segment of the game for anybody who knows the theme, loves the movies, whatever, and you're like, oh, I wonder, and honestly, throughout the rest of the game, I was wondering what other little nodes, what other little Easter eggs I would find. Unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, there weren't many or any, but it's still a pretty solid game for a one-time through. I urge everyone to play this game once, especially when it's free. Would I pay money for it? No, but for a free PSN game playthrough, give yourself an afternoon of fuck-uppery sort of idea. It was good. It was good for what it was trying to do. Trophy-wise, once again, have to go through and do some mundane crap, which once again, it's kind of like, well, you want to enjoy the game and not follow a trophy guide, but then after the fact you realize, well, I'm missing this, and this, and you have to go through these huge segments of game just to get to that one point, even with chapter select. That was pretty annoying. But yeah, for the most part, the trophies were fine. They were easy to do. And anyways, the rest of the game, as I said, is it a great game? No. Is it a perfect game? Of course not. But it did some good things right. Is it worth an afternoon? If you're bored and you got nothing else on the shelf, yes, it's a decent enough game to give it a try. It makes you think a little bit. It makes you a little weirded out, sort of like after watching a couple of horror movies that have some psychological, bringing to the table stuff to it, elements to it. It makes you think a little bit, and you start to question a few things, and you kind of sit down and go, So, but other than that, that's as far as Edith Finch took me. So, what did you guys think of the game? What did you think of the review? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please like, subscribe, comment. As always, it's always really appreciated. we'll be back here next time with probably a more concrete game. Right now I'm trying to play Monster Hunter World. I'm having a difficult time with getting fully into it. I've been trying and I know it's a daunting platinum, but that's not the case. The case of the fact is the gameplay and the stuff is just I don't know. We'll talk about that more in my review if I ever make it. If I don't make the platinum, then I don't make the platinum, because honestly I want to move on to the next one. So yeah, but look forward to that, guys. So we'll probably, either way, regardless if I platinum or not, if I finally drop the game and just say nope, not for me, then there will be a non-platinum review of Monster Hunter World and the reason why I didn't want to stick it out for the platinum. But anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you back here next time. As always, drink responsibly. I know we're not behind the bar, but once again, it's the weekend, so gotta drink, right? So we'll see you back here next time, guys. Peace